So many parts of southern Dorchester and Somerset that are going to be gone, just flat out gone. And that's beyond a ghost forest issue. But we manage quite a bit of land in both those areas, and we're just going to have to watch it and find out how do we manage it. You know, to have a healthy, resilient forest, you don't just leave it alone.
That was Matt Hurd from the Maryland Forest Service. I spoke with him and a few other scientists to learn more about the causes and impacts of saltwater intrusion. This is what I learned.
Ghost forests aren't going to stop occurring anytime soon. I think it's going to come down to the frequency of our storms and how much salt ends up being deposited here, and what these individual towns and cities are able to do with their stormwater. It comes down to that, but there's no denying the fact that in 40 years, when we drive to the Blackwater we knew and loved, it's just going to be a pond.
I decided to speak with University of Maryland researcher Dr. Kate Tully to learn more about the community and ecosystem impacts of saltwater intrusion.
Sea level rise, obviously, and the fact that we have very low lying coastal regions, the frequency of storms and tides, drought. So when we have these prolonged droughts, the water will evaporate and the salts will be left behind. The connectivity of our ecosystems, so the fact that we have dug out ditches or dredged canals, all of those man-made channels will actually help facilitate the movement of saltwater. While the original purpose of those ditches was actually to drain water off, right? These were wetlands. This whole region was wetlands and forests. So we drained them off with these ditches, but now they're kind of serving that reverse purpose, and that actually facilitates the movement of saltwater intrusion further inland than you might expect if we didn't have all these ditches. We have seen communities start to move out of that region. The different counties have actually started to release their jurisdiction. And once your road isn't maintained by the county, like the ditches aren't dredged out by the county or the roads aren't, lifted up as necessary, it's hard to get to your home. And so you'll tend to see those communities start to flee and just sort of disintegrate. And so we definitely see that in a lot of the necks of the Eastern Shore. So if you look at a map, you'll see these little peninsulas. And the roads that go out to each of those peninsulas, towards the end, a lot of those communities have usually fled. The forest doesn't actually die right away. It's kind of a slow death. You'll start to see this sort of what looks like a burning of trees because of the osmotic stress that's induced in vascular plants from salt. I was just out in the marsh the other day, and you'll actually see pine saplings, and they'll get to kind of a point where the saplings just can't sort of progress past a certain sort of age, and they'll start to die off. And the same thing happens with the snags, and then the marsh starts to move in the understory. And if that's a marsh, like native species, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If the forest can kind of move, has space to move upland. What's a really big problem is if the species that move in are invasive, like Phragmites australis, and then you've really lost your habitat quality and you've lost your forest.
But if we're able to do a lot of small things that just slow this, just resist the change, because we can't stop the change. So if we can resist it and find ways for landowners to financially benefit from it and therefore be engaged and encouraged by it, you need human tie-in. Because if nobody cares, everybody's going to throw up their hands and walk away. And then that's only going to make it worse. I think that when people become disconnected from the land, then you've lost the human motivation. And we've seen what human motivation can do on anything.